Good evening, Belize, and welcome to XTV's news broadcast for Wednesday, December 4, 2024. Making the headlines tonight, Belize makes oral arguments in climate change case at the ICJ. Placencia construction worker charged with rape of 13-year-old. Robbers steal over $16,000 in cash from Central Farm Administration building, and Belize Coast Guard seaman in coma at the KHMH due to traffic accident. We take our first break and return with the news in detail.
Singmas 2024. That's right. It's Already.
Welcome back. With your news, I am Marisol Amaya. Ongoing at the International Court of Justice, ICJ, are landmark hearings for the advisory opinion that has been requested from the court in relation to states' obligations regarding climate change. The request was made by the United Nations General Assembly back in March 2023. The court has been asked what states are required to do under international law, quote, to ensure the protection of the climate system and other parts of the environment from anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases for states and for present and future generations, end quote, and to identify the legal consequences for the acts and omissions of states that have caused significant harm to the climate system and other parts of the environment. The oral hearings started this week, and Belize presented today. In his opening statement, CEO in the Ministry of Climate Change, Dr. Kenrick Williams, highlighted Monkey River as a representative case of how many communities in small island developing states, SIDS, are being impacted by climate change.
Let me take one example of the profound human and environmental toll of climate change on Belize and on small island developing states more generally. That is the case of Monkey River, once a thriving community engaged in fishing and ecotourism. It is now in crisis. Rising sea levels and intensifying storms, unmistakable markers of climate change, have stripped away its coastline, with some areas losing up to 2 meters annually. Mangroves and seagrass beds, which historically served as barriers and biodiversity hotspots, have been critically degraded, leaving Monkey River exposed to further damage. This devastation has upended the lives of Monkey River's residents. The tragedy of Monkey River is a reality of countless communities worldwide, already enduring the impacts of climate change. The UNFCCC Standing Committee on Finance estimates that developing countries, including SIDS, require up to $584 billion annually by 2030 to address their costed needs and respond to the climate crisis. Yet, the recent COP29 decision pledged only $300 billion per year, leaving a staggering gap that delays adaptation, deepens vulnerabilities, and worsens losses. This underscores the urgent need for clarity on states' obligation under international law to protect vulnerable nations.
Belize's legal team consists of 4 international attorneys from Essex Court Chambers from England. 2 presented our position at the oral hearings. Sam Wordsworth spoke about positions from developed countries seeking to diminish the principle of prevention, obligations regarding transboundary harm, and the duty of due diligence.
The court now has before it no fewer than 6 lines of argument that seek to neutralise the existence or impact of the prevention obligation in the context of climate change, a display of legal firepower from those states most engaged in carbon consumption or production that makes one raise a quizzical eyebrow as to the hope that there will ever be agreement within the COP to meaningful and binding treaty obligations to reduce emissions. The first argument on neutralisation is that greenhouse gas emissions are somehow the wrong sort of harm and thus fall outside the prevention obligation. This is despite the fact that the harm occurs outside the emitting state's borders, constitutes existential harm to neighbouring and other states, and so is by definition significant transboundary harm. And of course, if this were not a relevant and applicable norm in this context, it would not be expressly referenced in the preamble to the UNFCCC. The argument is not serious, and it is irrelevant that the court thus far happens only to have applied the prevention obligation with respect to environmental harm suffered by a neighbouring state. A second and related argument is that the specific content of the prevention obligation has not been established by state practice and opinio juris in the current context of climate change. But the relevant content is established. It is the due diligence obligation of prevention, which is universally recognised, and likewise that this must be applied in the given fact-specific context here of climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. It currently appears impossible voluntarily to let go of the lifestyles now enjoyed, in particular in the global north, and likewise for states to let go of carbon-based revenue streams. But in terms of international law, we are in the realm of obligation, not discretion. Who knows when or if the competing interests of states will ever lead to meaningful treaty-based obligations of reduction within the COP. But hard-edged obligations already apply as a matter of the prevention obligation in customary international law.
In police news, we have confirmed that police have charged 34-year-old Dane Percival Neal, a construction worker from Placentia, for the rape of a 13-year-old girl. Police have not yet issued a report on the matter, but we are told the child and a sibling have both been removed from the home after social services became involved. Our reports are that the police investigation followed a latest incident that occurred this past weekend. However, we are told that the abuse was ongoing for some time but was kept hushed. Neil is the son of a pastor. There was an armed daylight robbery at the Ministry of Agriculture's Central Farm Administration building in Cayo. It happened on Tuesday just before 1 p.m. Two armed men, both wearing helmets, held up three women from the staff who were in the kitchen. They were ordered to lie on the floor but were subsequently pushed to the post office area, where the clerk was ordered to open a safe used by both the Belize Post Office and the ministry. In total, they took over $16,000 in cash, primarily from cattle sales, and 3 cell phones. The men then fled the scene in the direction of Georgeville. No suspects have been detained as yet. A Belize Coast Guard seaman, Gianni Vanegas, is in a coma at the ICU at the KHMH following an accident she was involved in on Saturday. She was on her motorcycle when she lost control and flipped in Roaring Creek Village. She was transported to the hospital by a bystander. The force is praying for her recovery as she has not been given a good prognosis. Vanegas was the Coast Guard's most outstanding female recruit last year. As the go slow by the Belize waste control continues, purportedly over the non-payment by the Belize City Council of over $800,000, many Southside residents were left with their garbage uncollected yesterday, resulting in some of it ending up on the streets. Councillor in charge of sanitation, Kaya Katus, told the media this morning that due to contracts in place, it is not an easy fix to work around. She also was unable to give a timeline as to when city residents can expect the matter to be resolved.
So as it relates to the garbage situation, it is obvious that there is an issue. The company responsible has not been picking up the garbage for whatever reasons, and as a result of this, the residents of Belize City have been left with garbage on the streets, and it has been looking bad, feeling bad. Nobody wants to see garbage everywhere. This garbage situation has been ongoing even before our council. A David Fonseca administration, Zenaida Moya administration, Darrell Bradley administration, and now a Bernard Wagner administration. And if we can see that all these mayors, all these heads have had an issue with garbage situation and for whatever reason cannot come to something or some kind of proper arrangement to get it resolved, then we have to look deeper into it, because that is telling you that there is more to whatever contract there is.
Has the council received a lawsuit from the waste Solid Waste, the company, because of non-payment?
I am not able to comment on that.
Well, as the council responsible though, can you say when we can expect that the streets will be clean, the garbage won't be out there lying around for days on end?
So we have been trying our best to clean the areas that we can. However, it is not within the scope of the contract for the city council trucks to actually pick up residential garbage. So it's not something that we can just take our trucks and go out there and pick up the garbage, because then that will cause another problem. So we are trying to work as best as we can with the company and see how best we can rectify the situation as soon as possible.
After the break, the police say 00 passport scandal is not connected to the immigration department. Stay with us. Welcome back. The news continues. On Monday, Commissioner of Police Chester Williams gave the media an update on the passport scandal involving documents discovered at 00 on Western Avenue in Belize City on November 18. At the establishment, QRT police discovered suspected marijuana, a firearm, ammunition, and 6 Chinese passports with fraudulent Belize visas. Williams said that so far police have not been able to determine that anyone from the Immigration Department was involved in the case.
I can say that from a police investigation standpoint, that issue has nothing to do with immigration. It so happens that it's an individual who happened to had in his possession some Asian passports, Asian national passports, and within those passports contained some Belize visas. He also had with him some immigration stamps. We have done our investigation, and it has been confirmed by the Department of Immigration that the visas in those passports are not authentic. The stamps are not authentic either. They're a replica of what immigration had. So it would appear as if this was an individual who was operating on his own. We have not unearthed any ties to anybody from immigration colluding with him. I can say that I had briefed the Prime Minister on this issue when it first occurred. And the Prime Minister's exact words was, "Commissioner, please pursue the investigation to the fullest and go after who you need to go after." And the police is operating under that instructions from the Prime Minister. And we have not been able to find any link to immigration. It's just a person who was on his own accord, developed these things for his own purpose. And so to call it an immigration scandal, I think is taking it too far.
Being circulated on Belize social media is a report on Facebook from a mother in Melchor, Petén, Guatemala, that her son was seriously injured while bursting dynamite, which is common during the Christmas season. The mother shared that her son decided to put a cherry bomb, one of the larger types of dynamite, under a tin can. When the cherry bomb went off, it tore the can to shreds, and a piece hit her son's leg, leaving a large gash to his leg right to the side of his kneecap. The injury required about a dozen stitches. The mother says she is sharing her experience to sensitize other parents to be vigilant of what their children are doing and about the dangers of the careless use of dynamite. The service for the expungement of criminal records as allowed under a recently enacted law has now started. It is being managed through the Community Rehabilitation Department within the Ministry of Human Development, Families and Indigenous Peoples Affairs in collaboration with the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Attorney General's Ministry. This means people can now apply to have past criminal convictions removed from their records, particularly in relation to minor cannabis possession charges and COVID-related offenses only for first-time offenders. To facilitate the process, a criminal records board has been established. The board will review and accept or deny applications, which can be obtained at any Ministry of Human Development office in the country, at the Ministry of Home Affairs office in Belmopan, and on the Ministry of Home Affairs website. With this service, government hopes that beneficiaries will have a better opportunity to succeed in their endeavors. Earlier this week, Commissioner of Police Chester Williams commented on cases involving domestic violence as we are in the middle of the 16 days of activism. Williams also admitted that even police officers have been charged for being involved in domestic violence cases. He shared what the police is doing to minimize this issue among police officers.
We're trying our best to hold on the conventional type of murders, the gang-related murders and so forth, those that emanates from nightclubs with drunkenness and so forth. And then we see these ones pop up, the domestic ones that are not within the preventative reach of the police. And those frustrates me because, you know, we're out there, we're trying, and out of the blues this one just come up. It's tough. But we have to continue to do what we can to hold those perpetrators accountable. I know that we're in 16 days of activism right now, and there is a lot being said in terms of domestic violence and gender-based violence, and so we're hoping that with what is going to be shared around this time, that it is going to help to reduce these types of crimes. Within our department, we have commissioned our local psychiatrists to go around the country and to speak with our police officers, because we also saw an increase in domestic issues involving police, where a number of officers were arrested. And so again, to stem that, Mr. Leslie is going around talking with the police officers across the country, giving them insights in terms of what they can expect or what they can do to avert issues of domestic violence.
After the break, main highways have held up in the face of Tropical Storm Sarah rains. Stay tuned.
St. Mass 2024. That's right, it's a
reach way already.
The San Ignacio Santa Elena low-lying bridge will be closed up until next week Sunday, December 15, as the Ministry of Infrastructure Development conducts an assessment on the structural stability of the base and makes any necessary repairs due to potential damages from Tropical Storm Sarah flood waters. Today, Chief Engineer Evandale Moody shared that maintaining the bridge is an unnecessary drain on taxpayers' dollars, but that the community has wanted it to remain in use.
It has outlived its design life. However, because of the maintenance, the continuous maintenance that MIDH has done, it is still functional. Definitely, as you mentioned, it was built as a temporary crossing while we were building the new Macau Bridge. But because of its location in close proximity to the market, it has become something like a norm for the Santa Elena and San Ignacio residents for them to access the market much easier than using the new Macau. From an economic standpoint, that bridge basically should have been removed when we built the new Macau, because we're not really seeing the economic viability of the new structure because all the traffic is still not using the new structure. So if you look at the economic analysis of the new structure, we're still not maximizing that at this point in time because we are still utilizing the temporary structure, which has now become permanent. So from an MIDH point, as a chief engineer, I have to accept it because it's something that the community wants. And we believe that we just need to continue maintaining it until such time. The ideal thing is for us to replace some of the piles, because the piles that are there are the old timber piles. And so ideally, I would like to change those piles out maybe early next year in the dry season, so that we don't have to do that again if we do have flooding again, which we will have sometime in the near future, and then just replace it with a new deck. But for the time being, we'll have to do some temporary repairs, just so that the public could utilize it in a safe fashion.
Moody today also reported on the damages to our road infrastructure as a result of rains from Tropical Storm Sarah that made landfall on Belize on November 17. He noted that while there is some damage to our secondary road network, our principal highways held up well.
For the most part, honestly, the main highways have held up quite well, and so our priority is the main highways because that is what we need to move the goods and services throughout the entire country. Yes, there are some damages that we sustained to some parts of them, and so those are the ones that we prioritize as a ministry because we need to ensure that all our highways are open. There are secondary roads that has been damaged, like the Crooked Tree Road, and the section that was damaged was more closer to the area where you dip down going into the lagoon itself, because we had to reduce that elevation to tie back into the existing two structures that are there. But once we have the opportunity to build those two new structures across the causeway, more than likely we will elevate that last section to enable us to have access to Crooked Tree. But as you know, Crooked Tree is still underwater completely, so I'm not sure how much the causeway would have helped or will help in the future, because looking at the footage that I've seen on TV, the entire village is underwater. So even if we build a causeway, the village is still inundated by flood water. So you could get out, but you still live in water. On the other highways, we haven't had significant damages. Within Belize City, we've seen that we've had some sections that have deteriorated, like on the Philip Wilson near the flour mill. We have two sections there, one by the flour mill and one by Sayview. But that section will be upgraded, using a hot mix pavement very shortly, because we've signed a contract to upgrade from Buttonwood Bay to the Sayview roundabout, and that will be commencing in January. We've already signed the contract for that. The sections that have been damaged on the George Price Highway near the Western Avenue junction, that will be dealt with by the ministry, and so we're going to be doing that in-house. In terms of the Hummingbird Highway, the Coastal Road, and the TV Ramos, we haven't had major damages on those highways, so there's not much work for us to do there.
The Belize City Council held its 4th annual youth panel discussion on gender-based violence violence against women and girls, and human trafficking. Youths from across the city gathered at Old Belize, just outside Belize City, to discuss and share their thoughts on these issues. Programs Manager at the Belize City Council, Michael Fritz, spoke of the importance of hearing directly from the youths themselves.
So this is our 4th annual youth panel discussion on gender-based violence, violence against women and girls, and human trafficking. It is a collaborative event between the Belize City Council, the United Nations Populations Fund, UNICEF Belize, the Department of Youth Services, and RET International. As you may be aware, we're well within the 16 days of activism, and this is our take to get unedited youth voices and opinions on gender-based violence, violence against women and girls, and human trafficking. So it's an opportunity to not only hear from the young people themselves, but gather students from across the city, and we do have some that are coming from out district, to have these discussions to find out how young people can be mobilized to bring an end or decrease the occurrences of these issues. So our target age group, when we're dealing with youths, so I must say that before we had this panel, we had to go through the data collection phase, and we were circulating surveys both on e-reports and our various social media platforms, and we were targeting young people ages 15 to 29, which is very much important to capture in terms of what youth is defined as. We do have schools, there's Edward P. York, we have it's at Seam Academy, Wesley College, we do have Sadie Vernon Technical High School, we have from Belize High School, we also have Anglican Cathedral College. These are some of the representative schools that we do have here. Our panelists are coming from some of the schools that I just mentioned, and as well, of course, our Belize City Youth Shadow Counselors.
Belize City Councillor Kaya Katu spoke of how the council will work on putting the voices of the youths into action.
So the youths are the ones who are bringing the message to the other participants out here today. We have left that completely in their hands to share their experiences and what they have learned in their time in whatever field that they have been working in.
And what will the council do with that message?
So we have our child advisor body, or youth shadow council, who we work with day in, day out. And these young people are the ones who draft their plan as to how they want to move forward. So we work with our youths and we try our best to, put what they have on paper into action.
With the Disability Act now signed into law, much work needs to be done across the country to give it effect. The Belize City Council says they are ready. Councillor in charge of liaising with persons with disabilities, Kaya Katu, says the council is in communication with the Belize Assembly for Persons with Diverse Abilities, BAPTA.
Of course, it is a great step. I mean, we need to see more inclusion for people with disability, not only within municipalities but across the country. We are in communication with BAPTA and other organizations, and we are trying our best to get things on paper, get policies written, so that the things that we try to implement can stay there even after we leave.
And police are still looking for answers regarding the November 15 crash landing of a suspected drug plane near Frank's Eddy, Cayo. Commissioner of Police Chester Williams had told the media they had a suspect they believe piloted the aircraft. However, on Monday, Williams admitted that the suspect was not able to provide the information they were hoping for.
Yes, we have located that individual and he has been interviewed. He was charged recently for breach of judicial order, and that matter is before the court at this time.
But haven't found the cargo?
No, we have not been able to locate the cargo, and we have not been able to tie him to the plane landing. As I said, he was only wanted because we believe that he would have been able to assist the investigation. He came in and he has been interviewed, but we have nothing at this time substantial we can go on to tie him to the plane landing.
And what became of the female officer who was reportedly assisting him?
That officer has been placed on internal charges, and she is on interdiction awaiting the hearing of that matter.
And with that, we have come to the end of our newscast. A repeat can be viewed on this station later tonight at 9 and again tomorrow at midday. Join us again tomorrow for another news broadcast. I am Marisol Amaya. Have a safe and enjoyable evening.